So by attacking Qatar, you can tell people in Israel, you see, I'm not a stooge of Qatar. I'm not, there have been a lot of conspiracy theories about Netanyahu being bribed by Qatar. And some documents detailing transfers of tens of millions of dollars from Qatar to Netanyahu's campaigns. We found no evidence that these documents were real, but they did fuel conspiracy theories against Netanyahu in Israel. So you see, I'm not a stooge of Qatar. I'm bombing Qatar.
Let's talk a little bit more about the attacks that occurred earlier this week. One of the questions you're asking today in Haaretz is, did the attack succeed? I think a lot of the way you answer that is to first of all figure out what was the goal of the attack.
Well, I think the immediate goal was to kill the leadership or some of the leaders of Hamas, what we call it the external Hamas, the Hamas abroad, who reside in Qatar. And if you remember, Israel assassinated Ismail Haniyeh, was the head of the external Hamas, and in Tehran. At that time, or until the recent attack, Israel refrained from attacking Qatar. Not because it's an ally, but because Qatar has a very complicated relationship with Israel and with Hamas and with the United States and Iran, and it plays each and every power in the region and outside against each other. Netanyahu has been embarrassed by his ties to Qatar in two levels. One, that he sponsored the Qatari payments to Hamas before the war. Since 2018, when the Palestinian Authority withdrew from paying salaries to the government structure in Gaza, Qatar stepped in its place and started giving Hamas tens of millions of dollars every month, at first in cash, then in bank transfers. And now we know that a lot of that money was used for military buildup and for preparing the eventual attack on Israel on October 7th. And Netanyahu, who is a big supporter of this Qatari move, arguing that in his effort to prevent a Palestinian state, the division between Hamas in Gaza and the Palestinian Authority in Ramallah was crucial for the success of his policy. So keeping Hamas on kind of life support while fighting it, on the other hand, was central to Netanyahu's status quo policy. So he's been embarrassed by that since the war, since October 7th. And the second thing is that several of Netanyahu's closest aides were dealing with his PR machine, are under investigation for being paid to run PR campaigns for the Qatari government, even though through front companies and so on. And so are several former senior officials in the Israeli intelligence. And this is called Qatargate in Israel, and it's the most embarrassing probe to Netanyahu's inner circle to this day. And he's been standing by his aides rather than trying to distance himself. He said he didn't know, but Qatar was not an enemy state. So by attacking Qatar, you can tell people in Israel, you see, I'm not a stooge of Qatar. I'm not, there have been a lot of conspiracy theories about Netanyahu being bribed by Qatar. And some documents detailing transfers of tens of millions of dollars from Qatar to Netanyahu's campaigns. We found no evidence that these documents were real, but they did fuel conspiracy theories against Netanyahu in Israel. So you see, I'm not a stooge of Qatar. I'm bombing Qatar. That's one thing.
But negotiations were going on for a resolution that was presented by the United States and by Netanyahu.
Well, Netanyahu, from day one, did not want a comprehensive deal to end the war and exchange Israeli hostages with Palestinian prisoners. And he wanted, and he still wants, to prolong the war for several reasons. First of all, it's good for him politically because it delays any talk of election. It keeps his coalition together.
Hi, I'm Pat Morrison, one of the hosts of America at a Crossroads. If you like this video, don't just watch. Head over to our website where you can subscribe for early access to new programs, see our upcoming schedules, and connect directly with our guests in our weekly live streams. Thank you for watching.
Strategically, what he's trying to achieve is the destruction of Gaza and an effort to push its inhabitants to relocate the Palestinians in Gaza, to expel them to third countries voluntarily, what they call voluntary immigration. And Netanyahu's government has been in talks with several countries like South Sudan and Indonesia and some others, in order to, maybe Ethiopia as well, in order to drive out, so convince them to accept hundreds of thousands of Palestinians from Gaza, so far unsuccessfully. But as long as the war is going on, Israel is going city after city in Gaza, driving out the population, raising all the buildings and infrastructure and roads and community services, etc. And now the big goal is Gaza City, the largest city in Gaza, home to about 1 million people who still live there under horrible conditions. And Netanyahu didn't want to end the war, and he doesn't want to release all these Palestinian prisoners. So for a long time, he supported a partial deal to bring back 10 out of the 20 living hostages and some of the dead hostages as well, and keep the war going after some impasse of 60 days or so. And then when the Hamas indicated that they were willing to accept it, he changed his mind and asked for a comprehensive deal, which Hamas preconditions with a full Israeli withdrawal from Gaza. And the fact that Hamas is still there running whatever show there is in Gaza and still holding these hostages allows Netanyahu to keep fighting. Although the IDF, which succeeded brilliantly against Hezbollah and against Iran, so far has failed to defeat Hamas. And although they killed tens of thousands of people, they killed thousands and thousands of Hamas operatives, they killed the leadership of Hamas, both in Gaza and some of the leadership abroad. So far to no avail. Hamas is still holding the hostages and still in whatever power there is, the distribution of food or whatever in Gaza.
Next week, there will be a well-known Canadian-American political commentator, that's David Frum. He'll be in conversation with Pat Morrison. They'll talk about America's democracy. Where do we go from here?